a great turning.
The old story.
And turning towards kinship and
So what is the old story?
community and deeper purpose.
Separation and economism.
Our responsibility to not only it,
and create the new earth, a new way of being.
but its inhabitants.
Healing ourselves, healing earth. Oh, and welcome to episode 92 of Truth Be Told. It's been an amazing month focusing on nature, and of course we've been focusing on this book, Developing Ecological Consciousness by Christopher Uhl, and it has been amazing. So we're going to wrap it up tonight. But before we do, one thing that really jumped out at me from this book was this idea of, as we create changes in the way we interact with our environment, a lot of what we have been doing, we're doing it from the same consciousness that we had when we created the challenges that we're faced with. And so the author said something to the extent of, like, we can really make some serious progress, and we have been, and we hope to make even greater. But if we're doing it from that same consciousness, then essentially what we're doing is just treating the symptoms. And so, as we practice in the science of mind and what we teach and share with our community here in Soul Evolution Collaborative, is the idea that the effects, everything we see in the world, is really just symptoms of an underlying cause. So what this book has been steering us towards is a complete shift in the way that we view ourselves as part of this one organism of Earth and all that we do together. And so that's what it's going to take for this shift of our entire being to really cement the new way of being, a new Earth. And if we go from the old way, treating the symptoms and not getting to the underlying cause, then as time goes on, that cause is still there and those symptoms are going to reappear in different forms. So this book is encouraging us to step into new ways of being. It's been a lot of fun, and we hope that you've been enjoying it. And let's sit back and enjoy this episode of Truth Be Told. All right, we're moving into this final week, looking at this book, Developing Ecological Consciousness, The End of Separation by Christopher Uhl. And we are looking at the section titled Healing Ourselves, Healing Earth. I'm taking on chapter 7, which is called The Old Story. Now, as we look at this, if you've followed Soul Evolution Collaborative for any amount of time, you've heard us talk about the old ways. That it's time to let the old ways go, that they no longer serve us, and create the new earth, a new way of being. And that's exactly what this author is talking about. So what is the old story? Well, he says the old story is really focused on separation and economism. So separation is what we, at least in the United States for sure, feel is we have created more separateness between others. We are separated, as early as by age 1. Most people are already like in a daycare while their parents go and earn. And so we create that separation, and it goes on through, primary school, and then in through college. We're separated by our test scores, by our age, all these little things that separate us. And as we've, made what we call progress in the United States, we've also created more physical separation. We live less densely than we used to. We see it in urban sprawl. Even looking at like our families, our houses have gotten bigger. We've created more space within our houses. This separation goes on until eventually we end up in a retirement home feeling separate from everything else. Well, the human species is a social species, and we need each other. We need connection and community. But we've gotten into this greater ideas of, taking care of me, myself, of creature comforts. Bigger is better, and that's created a distance. We don't run into the people, our neighbors, people that we know nearly as frequently when we're so spread out, and it's left us feeling like there's a hole that we need to fill with something, and that's where economism comes in. Christopher Uhl, the author, talks about economism as a god, that we are here to tell people how to fill that hole with stuff, and we spend a lot of money to advertise and market, telling people that they have a hole, making them feel that, and then tell them that the fix is buying this, doing that. All these little things are going to make you feel complete, and they kind of do for a very short amount of time, and then that's okay when that feeling wears off, because then you just get the next thing and then the next thing. So this drive for more has created us taking Earth's resources at a rate that we can't keep up with, and it's all justified by this god of economism. And this is so ingrained in our being, to even suggest that we try to live a different way is sacrilegious. And people have been really put in their place quite quickly when they try to speak out against this idea of capitalism and constant expanding growth. So as we have kind of tried to fill these holes with stuff and see what we've done to the earth, it's created the old story that we have to continue this in order to create the world that we want to live in. But it's not true. We've been told that there's not enough resources to go around, but we have more than enough to feed, clothe, and house everybody on this planet. But as we feel separate, we create this idea of us and them, superiority and inferiority, and survival of the individual, that has allowed us to justify the mistreatment of the planet, the mistreatment of whole swaths of people, and really it's a painful way to go. So if we know this can't be sustained forever, constant growth is not a sustainable model, and we see it now more and more as the ultra wealthy acquire and sit on money, which is just the means to acquire the resources, that eventually other people, the people slowly from the bottom working up, are not going to have enough resources themselves to participate in that economy of all these goods that we feel like we have to fill ourselves, and eventually the whole system would shut down. And so creating a new earth, this is what we have to really start working on. The old story no longer serves us. Time to let that go, and then let's see what Rev Ryan has to tell us about creating a new story.
If you haven't heard, our Thursday night event, The Gathering, is stellar. This is where folks come together, share their own personal life experiences, and have the opportunity to show up in new and authentic ways. So if this sounds like your jam, join us on Thursdays at 7 Eastern. You can sign up by flying over to our website, soulevolutioncollaborative.org, and the fun that we have is out of this world. So we find ourselves at the end of the book, Developing Ecological Consciousness, and hopefully a little more aware of our connection to the natural world and our responsibility to not only it, but its inhabitants. And so we're called to join in the masses in creating a new story. Even as I speak, there are signs just below the surface of what Christopher Uhl in his book calls the Great Turning. And so this turning away from crippling separation and turning towards kinship and community and deeper purpose. We were made for a relationship, and this is not a new revelation. We have talked about that time and time again. You can look at any environmental or social problem, climate change, species extinction, war, genocide, deforestation, Coral reef decline, dehumanization, injustice, inequity. The list goes on and on. In every instance, separation or the severing of relationships is at the source. Just breathe that in for a minute. But there's a new story that's emerging, one that speaks truth to the illusion of separation. The antidote to this idea of separation is the truth of interdependence with one another, with the earth that we're a part of, with the universe from which we were sourced from. Our blueprint is connection. The essence of our existence is relationship. Richard Nelson writes, "There is nothing of me that is not earth. No split instance of separateness. No particle that disunites me from the surroundings. I am no less than earth itself. The river runs through my veins, the wind blows in and out with my breath, the soil makes my flesh, the sun's heart smolders inside of me. The life of earth is my own life. My eyes are earth gazing at itself." Recent research points to the awareness that human beings are actually more attuned to each other than previously imagined. Daniel Goleman, in his book Social Intelligence, revealed that researchers in Sweden discovered that by simply seeing a picture of a smiling face, it's enough to subtly activate the smile muscles of our own face. The response is neurobiological. For example, if someone pricked your finger, neurons would be activated in a certain part of your brain. Simple, nothing too unexpected there. The thing that is unexpected is if you watch someone else get pricked, your brain activates in the same place. And it's known that the human brain is wired with a class of cells called mirror neurons. These neurons activate and respond to the emotions of others. In effect, grafting their emotions into our own. In essence, when we see emotions or experiences of others, we are able to sense that emotion within ourselves. Still think we're not hardwired for relationship and connection? We can see the interdependence and connection even in young children. You've seen it. An adult drops something and the small child instinctively picks it up, the object, and hands it to the adult, without instruction or guidance. Cooperation, connection, community is our natural state. And we've been socialized out of this phenomenon, away from collaboration and towards individualism. But this does not have to be. We're seeing it more and more every day. Folks are slowly releasing the stranglehold of individualism and learning to lean into our natural states of community, connection, collaboration, and belonging. This is our saving grace, the answer that we so desperately seek. We are at a pivotal moment in history, a moment of shift from a consciousness based on exclusivity to one that's based on inclusivity and connection. When the goal is exclusivity, we often silence those whom we don't agree with or who are unlike ourselves. But when we focus and the vision is inclusivity, we would open ourselves up to the creation of a world that works for all. Community becomes the foundation of our life. This reality and the necessity of this understanding is being revealed to us now. As we say yes to building systems and frameworks that support community and connection, and release old systems of separation, we embark on a new story. One that opens us up to the expanded ways of being and limitless, sustainable possibilities.
Limitless possibilities.
Possibilities. The possibilities are limitless.
That's right.
Limitless.
It's amazing how directly in parallel this book is to the things that we talk about like all the time.
Yes.
And I think that just needs to be said. It's like, I think for years, New Thought teachings have been like, yeah, this information's all over the place, and it's all like everybody's seeing it here and there, and it's in movies, and as if that was some way of like, we didn't just make it up, like, because the rest of the world, I think it can seem a little weird if, if your exposure to new thought is kind of like more like new age stuff rather than new thought. And so to see this in the, not only in, but from the perspective of like pure science, from like, from this ecological standpoint, this dude is talking about the same universal principles, the same thing that brings us all together and binds us and connects us, the same thing that we talk about,
Yeah.
and so, like, certainly new thought has, it's can be looked at as like religions. Like, yeah, it's a new thought religion in the sense that um, we gather together in religious type community. But I think the gap that used to be between like science and Christianity, like that kind of religion, that's like that's the old thing too, right? I think we're like, it really is coming together, and it's not just us saying it because we like cherry pick random little facts from science, but it's like, no, it's like, this is literally like the teachings of science of mind are literally in parallel with what this dude's writing about as science.
Yeah, well, and even like this, it's like this, yeah, like this layered understanding, like this coming from, like I said, like you said, a science, like different perspective, but it's like, it's the same things. It's this,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think it's affirming. I mean, not that we were looking for affirmation, but I think it's affirming the truth, and it's the truth I think that
Yeah.
sometimes can be hard to see depending on like your perspective or where you're coming from. But when you read something like this that's coming from a scientific ecological perspective, and then you read about an organization that's coming from social justice and community building perspective, and then you have you know us coming from spiritual community perspective, and they're all the same thing. And it's like just coming from all these walks of life, all these perspectives, all these different types of experiences that people are living simultaneously and then coming to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
It supports that our understanding of the universal truths, that they're not just things that we think happen sometimes, but these are things that are fundamentally true.
Yeah.
No matter where you are, no matter where you come from, no matter your experience, those ingrained what it means to be human, what it means to be human in this space and time, what it means to be human in this universe. I mean, it's like it gets just down to that just finite level of connection, which is really cool to see. And also it's empowering because then we have a lot of people moving in that direction and meeting in the middle. So it's not like we're moving in a direction and we hope everybody comes along with us, but it's like, oh, we're all bringing our own what we have to bring to the table to support this new way, the sustainable way, and we're all meeting in the middle. And it just seems like this, like the power of collaboration has been like the code has been cracked, and people are just moving in droves in this direction, which is, I mean, we know that's where change happens. Those big shifts when we can collectively see that.
I love that vision. Like everybody kind of moving towards the center, towards this circle where this is the reality, but coming at it from different paths. And like up to a point, like there used to be like kind of a competition too, like, well, this is the path you need to take to get there. And other people are like, no, you got to do it my way. And but we're all kind of going there. Like all of a sudden, I think we're going to find ourselves, shoulder to shoulder, like, oh, hey, we all ended up here somehow on our different paths. And this whole time,
what the hell happened?
whole time we've been arguing about it, but here we are. So, and I think that kind of one of the things that he alludes to at the end is the idea of like what comes out of chaos. That maybe everything that we have created that is, when you talk to people about you're really looking at creating a new world, a new way of being. And people are like, it looks like we're going backwards. And the author talked about like this idea of chaos all around us, but he also says, but maybe that's exactly the perfect thing, that this is what it requires to get us. It's almost like the absurdity gets so big that like all of a sudden now we can't deny it, and just force us like, oh yeah, well, we have to 180 degrees shift our way of thinking. And without that chaos, would it happen? Would it be possible?
Well, and just like in, there's no urge to grow without that resistance. Because if there's no resistance, then I'll just stay here. That's fine. But it's like when we, but I think that's what happens when we're living in a state that's not our true nature, which I think that collectively on the planet we are doing in different aspects, and it becomes more and more uncomfortable. And that, just like you said, that chaos, that stuff, it becomes more and more uncomfortable because it is bumping up against the truth of who we are, and bumping up the truth of the blueprint. And like, ooh, it gets uncomfortable. And it's like at that point, oh yeah, now we need to move into a state that is returning back to that. Yeah. And I think that discomfort is what kind of spurs action. Otherwise, if there wasn't that discomfort or just sheer absurdity, then we would just kind of like just sit in our own little world and say, okay, everything's fine. But it's that sometimes it is that that bumping up against something that's not our true nature that kind of urges that to come forward.
What's fascinating, a thought that just came to me hearing you say that, and this kind of goes back to that reaffirming piece you mentioned a couple minutes ago, Ryan. It can easily feel, I'll speak for me. I can easily feel like, what is happening? Like, what is going on? Right? Yeah. And so like, yeah, no, this is definitely what I believe. But when we live in a world that's so ingrained in its way of being, it's like constantly gaslighting everyone who believes anything different. And yet here we are in an organization where even here we're like, in a way, the outliers, because we're like, well, yeah, the teaching, yes. The way we're teaching it, so it's like we're too cutting edge for the group we're a part of, but way, so it's like this weird, like in the middle of like, what is happening? So trying to convince the world, like, yeah, that's not your blueprint. We are not acting within the design of human nature. Like, we are acting so specifically against ourselves and have been for a very long time. And like, it is showing up. Chris, you talked about the world of effects, right? Like the symptoms that show up in our life have for a long time collectively been like, hello, can you stop this now? Yeah. And so I think the affirmation for me of reading this book was, oh, here is what we're talking about in the language of the people who tend not to want to hear what we have to say, because it's like it's like a whole other language, right? The whole like woo-woo kind of like, oh, it's all one and it's great. We're just gonna, and to be honest, I mean, there are people who talk like that from this perspective. Talking like that makes it look a little foolish. And so to have the language of like everyday people who are so solidified in this, like, no, this is the way, this is the way it's always been, this is the way it should be. Or even people who don't say that, out loud, but certainly have that unconscious belief. I mean, even the people who are trying to do things differently, we still have this tendency to do it from the same consciousness, like you were saying before, Chris. And so to have the language of as like a bridge from like, come on, to like, nope, this is the way it's been, this is the way it's gonna be. It's like, oh, now, yeah, we're really getting into like that coming together thing. And I kind of suspect that's how that ends up happening, right? It's like when we can shed our pedestal of like, this is our teaching and this is our jargon. and really and actually like meet the rest of the world where it's at. Not that we're separate from the rest of the world, but having a pedestal with language that tends to separate us from, anyway. So it was, yeah, I think that reaffirming piece really is actually like that bridging thing, that thing that brings all of the perspectives together and really does kind of like suss out that golden thread that kind of is going in between everything.
Well, and as you're talking, it makes me think that we talk about we get together on Tuesdays and we talk about these things and we talk about it and it sounds so easy. We listen to the recording and says, oh yeah, we have figured out how to do it. No, we it's like I could speak for myself, but I know you guys too. We buy into the same stuff. We buy into the same myth of separation. We buy into the same thing of like, oh, I've done it this way. This is really comfortable. Oh, it's really scary to step out in this way, or let go of this framework, and step into this framework. And so it's not. Hopefully, that there's no idea that we don't have challenges too. But I think what's interesting is to speak those challenges. I think that's something that for me, I think we can negate people's experiences. We can disempower people when we avoid saying, I don't know all the answers, and yeah, I have doubts, and yeah, I get scared, and sometimes I just want to stay in my own little framework, and sometimes I really want to be separate. I really don't want to be, and so I think that creating space where we can have those conversations, where we can have those authentic conversations, where we can come together and not bypass the world of effect, because we are living in a world of a lot of effects of frameworks that we didn't create, ways of doing things that we didn't create, that we're born into. But by like bypassing and saying that's not happening, we're just all one and wholeness and all that stuff we know to be true, we still have to look at the world of effect, and we have to look at, even Ernest Holmes said that we can't turn away from the world of effect. We have to recognize it. We have to recognize the systems and the frameworks that have created it. Like you said, Chris. I mean, we can't address a challenge at the level that it was created. I mean, we do have to see the source and then move from that. So I think that's the beauty of conversations like this and communities like this and other communities, just creating those spaces for us to be real and for us to bridge that barrier, like you said, Dan, of this jargon of, change your thinking, change your life. Well, yeah, but
yes,
yeah, it's more than that. And so I think that's the beauty of communities, being able to have those conversations. And I think once we do that, we'll find that there's a lot of commonality no matter what the language is, and then that's where shift begins to happen.
You said something there that really reminded me of something I wanted to say, is that saying that like we don't have it all figured out, and we're all learning it. That sometimes like conversations can make people feel guilty or like blame or shame for thinking this way. But in reality, like this is so ingrained in our system. Like this is a complete system. So the anomaly would be somebody who doesn't think this way, and that's very, very rare. And so like it's not to place blame or shame on anyone, and it's not to even say that everything that was created up to this point was evil and done out of this way to like intentionally harm the earth and deplete all of her resources. Like it was a lot of really good intention that has gotten us to this point. Some of it misguided, and some of it has whatever errors of consciousness throughout it. But it's us asking to find a different way doesn't place like blame or shame on, those that have come before us. And it doesn't say that we hate it, that we hate the system that we're in. It's actually, quite the opposite, that we, the more you love something, the more you want to see it thrive. And so, like, the author alluded to that a bit too, that it's, not to throw everything out that has, gotten us to where we are. We've made, enormous advances, and now we're just at a new opportunity to continue that, and in more, conscious and mindful ways.
Yeah. And isn't that interesting that it is such that complete system that even part of the system is to get us to think that if we think differently than the system teaches us to, then we are we are wrong. You are bad, And so there's like it's almost threatening. Like it can be threatening to like hear someone say like, no, we gotta shut that down. We gotta do something different here. We gotta look at the, it's like there is that threatening aspect of it of like, no, I am good. I am thinking the way the system said, and that is good. And I'm, and so it takes like a lot of courage, I think, to not only just be able to listen to the idea that like the system might not be all that, or it's like it maybe has been looking to shift for a while, and we've kind of just we've clung to that identity of the system, because that's what the system says to do. So it not only takes courage to just hear that, but then to even like act on it, to do something different, to have a different thought, to act in a different way is like, whoa.
Well, and the book's amazing. So if you haven't read it, Developing Ecological Consciousness, Christopher Uhl, it really is. For me, it's been like this kind of life-changing sort of perspective-changing sort of experience. It's just been really interesting to look at the areas in my own life where I still buy into that myth of separation. And it's sneaky too. It likes to sneak in there, and so it really does. I mean, it doesn't mean that I will never do it again, but of course I will. But it's like the more we become aware of it, the more we can say, oh, no, that's not the truth. This is the truth. And I think the more that we do that, then the more that truth of the connection will come more naturally, and then that's how these, systems and frameworks shift. It's becoming aware of our own our own tendency to fall back into it. And it's, it's a journey. It's a lifelong journey. I don't know that we'll ever reach perfection. If not, poof, we're gone. So if one Tuesday you're watching and all three of us disappear, we
were wrong about enlightenment. You do poof.
Oh, I wouldn't look for that though. But anyway, it is a journey. And like I said, the book has been just an amazing part of that journey.
It's been a good month.
Yeah, it's been great. Ooh, I wonder what we'll get into next month.
I don't know. I hope somebody knows.
Yeah, for real.
All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. It has been an amazing month, and we appreciate all of your support and just the ways that you find to participate. So, of course, check us out on soulevolutioncollaborative.org and see where you fit into this mix. Come join us. Thursday nights are wonderful conversation to take these subjects deeper. Sunday night, the second Sunday experience, is another way of finding a spiritual practice of sorts that help create community and help deepen our understanding of all of this. So there's lots of ways to get involved. And of course, a big way to get involved coming up is our Summit 2.0, O-Shift, Healing the Divide. So this is a continuation from last year. We had our first annual summit, and it was a amazing experience, and we know that it's going to be just as amazing this year. So November 14th through the 17th is the Healing Divide. It was leading to our socially engaged conversation that will happen on Friday night, and it's just going to be a really a fun way to get deeper into this, philosophy and new ways of creating our planet, our interaction with all human beings, and our collective consciousness that absolutely is always running through it all. So thanks for being here. We appreciate your support. I hope you have a wonderful week until we see you again.